What about them? The ones Ashley nearly destroyed with her blockchain stunts, her DeFi pools, those wild tokenized equity products, pet projects she'd championed with relentless self-confidence, shoving them through compliance with a smile and a PowerPoint. Now those same projects had blown up spectacularly, leaving a crater where trust used to be. What happens to those clients? The question hung in the air, rhetorical and hopeless. Lisa just stared at her hands, as if the answer might be written in her lifelines. I couldn't stay. I walked out, the sound of my footsteps echoing down the silent corridor, carrying a finality I hadn't planned for but recognized instantly. I took the elevator down to the basement, my exile for the past 5 months, my penance for speaking up too soon or too directly. In the archive room, I gathered up my personal effects. My battered old laptop, some files I never trusted to the cloud, my Navy shadow box tucked away and half forgotten. Everything else I left behind. The company mug, the badge, the stack of business cards with a title that barely meant anything anymore. On my way out, I passed the innovation lab, Ashley's domain, the epicenter of all the chaos. Her office door stood wide open, the room stripped of anything personal. Even the little LED hustle mode sign she always bragged about was dark, tossed aside or packed away. She was gone, vanished in the span of an afternoon. Her laptop was missing, no coffee cup on the desk, no trace but a faint smell of perfume and ambition gone sour. In the parking lot, Drew caught up to me, breathless and anxious. "Rick, where are you going?" "Home," I said, feeling the weight of the word. "I'm done." He looked at me as if I'd spoken in another language. "What about your job?" I almost laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. "What job?" "I've been in a basement for 5 months, no real role, no authority. I doubt that job actually exists anymore." I could see the realization hit him, the panic rising in his eyes as he tried to process what came next. What should I do? His voice was desperate, searching for something. Guidance, reassurance, a lifeline. "Document everything. Keep your head down. Start looking for something else," I told him. It was the best advice I had, hard-earned and honest. The company would eat itself from the inside out now, and I'd seen enough of these collapses to know that nobody was coming to save you. He hesitated. "Will you give me a reference?" I stopped, really looking at him. Drew was young, smart, still idealistic enough to believe that good work mattered. "Yeah," I said. "You're good at what you do, Drew. Don't let this place make you forget that." I meant it. In a world full of showboats and grifters, that still counted for something. I drove home, the city blurring past my window, 1,000 distractions clamoring outside but none of them able to touch me. I spent the afternoon in my garage, finishing a bookshelf I'd started months before. There was something comforting in the wood, the grain under my fingers, the slow, methodical progress of sanding and joining. My phone rang over and over, 6 times in all. Ron's assistant twice, Lisa once, 2 partners I barely knew. Each call an invitation back into the wreckage, a chance to be pulled under by the undertow of crisis. I let every call go to voicemail, the unanswered rings blending into the background hum of the workshop. At 4:30, I glanced at my phone. The Wall Street Journal headline was blunt: "Investment firm merger collapses amid regulatory concerns." They cited governance conflicts, lack of operational clarity. Corporate speak for, they almost bought a house riddled with cracks in the foundation and termites chewing through the beams. The truth compressed into 3 paragraphs and a stern quote from an unnamed source. Over the next couple weeks, the whole story unraveled in slow motion. Ashley lost her access the day I sent my email. Security walked her out around 2 p.m., just as I was sitting in Lisa's office watching the fallout begin. Ron announced his retirement 10 days later, a press release full of empty platitudes about pursuing other interests. Everyone knew he'd been pushed before the lawsuit hit. Personal fine, and the board clawed back her $340,000 signing bonus, an almost symbolic gesture, given the scale of the mess. Last I heard, she was selling cars in Scottsdale, her LinkedIn profile scrubbed of all the disruption talk, every thought leader selfie erased like it never happened. Within a week, 3 firms reached out to me, all interested. The third was a private equity group I'd worked with before, people who understood the value of risk and how to manage it. They offered me the role of Chief Risk Officer, $480,000 base, plus equity, nearly 40% more than my senior director gig before the acting CFO disaster. This time it was permanent, not a temp patch for a boat that was already taking on water. I took the offer without hesitation.
Sometimes the universe doesn't give second chances, it gives course corrections.
Drew handed in his notice the same day I did. He asked to come with me, said he wanted to learn from someone who actually knew the work, not just the buzzwords. I said yes. I'd seen what happened to good people left behind, swallowed by the dysfunction, ground down until they couldn't remember why they started. Not long after word got around, people in the industry started calling me the regulator. I hadn't asked for the nickname, hadn't wanted it, but I didn't correct anyone either. In this business, sometimes your reputation is all you have, and sometimes it's the only thing that matters. 3 months into the new job, the Journal ran another piece. The CFO who exposed an $815 million fraud. They used the word fraud. I never did, not out loud, maybe not even to myself. But really, what else do you call it? Signing documents without authority during an SEC review, manufacturing numbers to fit the story, hiding risk behind jargon and technology nobody understood. It was fraud adjacent at the very least, a line crossed, a trust betrayed. Now it's a Saturday morning in February. I'm in my garage workshop putting the last coat of oil on that bookshelf. It's solid, perfectly square, the joints snug and true, built to last. My phone rings. Brian, an old contact from a lifetime ago. Rick, I've been meaning to tell you. Your documentation on that case? Immaculate. You should have been a lawyer. I run my hand along the smooth oak, feeling the cool, honest grain. Nah, I just build things that don't fall apart. He laughs. Well, whatever you built, it worked. Whole firm collapsed in 48 hours. It was already collapsing, Brian. I just wrote it down. I hang up, step back and look at the bookshelf. It'll hold a lot of weight, last for decades if someone takes care of it. Above my workbench, that navy shadow box, I found it in the trash that morning, cleaned it up, had it remounted. Hung it where I can see it every time I work. There's a line engraved at the bottom, non sibi sed patriae, not for self but for country. It's about service, loyalty to something bigger than yourself, something that endures even when everything else falls apart. I wasn't trying to destroy Ashley or Ron or burn the firm down. That was never the goal. I was just protecting what I'd helped build. 20 years of work, thousands of clients who trusted us, a system that actually functioned when people did their jobs right. They wanted to trade all that for buzzwords and TikTok hype and blockchain fantasies. All I did was remind them, forcefully maybe, what the real foundation was made of. Integrity, hard work, accountability, the things that last. I pour a glass of Macallan 25, the good stuff I'd been saving for a day when I could finally breathe easy again. I hold it up to the light, amber and steady. The world outside is still uncertain, still full of risk, but for the first time in months I feel something like peace. The bookshelf gleams under the workshop lights, solid and uncompromising. I built it to last, and in a world where so much is temporary, that's more than enough. Hold on, don't drink it yet. Just take a moment to really see it. That glass in your hand isn't just a drink. It's a symbol of something much bigger. I spent 2 decades at that company, tucked away out of sight, stationed in a forgotten basement with flickering, buzzing lights overhead. People barely glanced my way, but when they did, it was only to call me institutional memory, as if I was a relic from a bygone era. Legacy clutter, they'd say when they thought I couldn't hear. Too set in his ways, not moving with the times. Out of touch, they called me, like I was a dusty file they'd misplaced but couldn't quite throw out. But times change. Now the tables have turned and I'm the one holding the reins. Those same people who once dismissed my experience now come to me for guidance. I'm earning more than I ever imagined, not just in salary but in respect and influence. I'm building better, stronger systems, ones that actually work, that last. I'm mentoring the new team, showing them that hard-won knowledge and patience matter as much as innovation. I'm giving them the tools to succeed, lessons no textbook could offer. So as I finally raise the glass to my lips after all these years, I do it slowly, savoring the moment. The taste is rich, layered with the struggles and triumphs of years past. It's not just the flavor of a good drink. It's the taste of hard-fought victory, of perseverance finally recognized, of a legacy restored and renewed. I left the office and went home, the night air sharp against my skin. My cat meowed at me, insistent and oblivious to the weight I carried. I fed him, made a sandwich I barely touched. I needed to steady myself, to do something with my hands. In the garage, my half-finished bookshelf waited. 3 months of slow, careful work. Red oak, dovetail joints, every piece measured twice, cut once. I sanded, fitted joints, checked for square and true. The rhythm of the work calmed me. For 2 hours, the world shrank to wood and grain and the satisfaction of precision. No thoughts of Ashley or the firm or the looming disaster. Just the quiet truth that some jobs can't be rushed. That doing things right sometimes means standing alone against the tide. Around 1 in the morning, I cleaned up and went inside. I set my alarm for 4:30, enough time to review the email one last time before it sent at 4:47. Early enough that Lisa, and everyone else who needed to see it, would get it before the day's noise drowned it out. Before I closed my laptop, I added 2 more recipients: our SEC liaison, the person overseeing our merger review, and the compliance officer at the overseas firm trying to buy us. 3 recipients, 3 sets of eyes that couldn't look away from what I was about to reveal. I knew this would trigger a chain reaction: internal investigations, external scrutiny, maybe even criminal referrals. But the truth had to come out. I read the email again, scrutinizing every detail. All the evidence was there. No gaps, no ambiguities, no possibility of misunderstanding. This was bigger than me, bigger than office politics or rivalries. It was about protecting the company, the clients, and the values we were supposed to uphold. When I finally lay down to sleep, I felt the same quiet resolve I'd known years ago in the Navy, on the cusp of dangerous missions, calm, focused, ready for whatever came next. 5 months. That's how long this circus ran unchecked. 5 months of smoke and mirrors, of so-called innovation, while the real rot spread beneath everyone's noses. The whole office was too busy marveling at Ashley's latest LinkedIn accolades, her relentless posts about disruption and leadership, to notice what really mattered. She was breaking federal law right under their noses, and nobody wanted to look away from the show long enough to see it. I remember sitting in my half-lit basement corner, the chill of cement at my feet, my mouse hovering over schedule send. My shadow box, the one I'd kept for 20 years, filled with mementos from a career spent building this place, was already in the trash. We're reimagining the office, they said. My space was now called an innovation lab, which in reality meant a folding table, a flickering light, and the ghosts of all the people who'd already been shown the door. 20 years, and this was what it came to: a seat by the water heater, out of sight, out of mind. I thought about Kat Barnes, who'd nearly lost her company because some junior hotshot thought blockchain was a magic spell that could fix anything, and nobody around him knew enough to contradict him. I thought about Drew and the other junior analysts, watching them quietly absorb the lesson that technical skill and dedication only matter if you're also young, flashy, or well-connected. You could work late, deliver perfect reports, train the new hires, and still vanish the moment you stopped fitting the narrative. So I clicked schedule, set the email for 4:47 a.m., the hour when the world is still, when mistakes and courage look the same in the pale blue light. There was no way to unsend it now. For the first time in months, I lay down and actually slept. The flare had been sent up. No putting it out, no pretending it wasn't burning. My alarm went off at 6, but I was already awake, the calm of decision settling over me. I made coffee, fed my cat, checked my phone. The email had gone out right on schedule. 3 delivery receipts. Lisa Hoffman opened it at 5:53, the SEC liaison at 6:02, the merger compliance officer at 6:18. I stared at those times, each one a countdown to detonation, and drank my coffee black. By 8:30, the aftershocks began. Drew texted, "Something's happening." Executive floor is chaos. Partners in emergency meeting. I could picture it. Ron's red face, Lisa's clipped voice, the merger team huddled with outside counsel. I put my phone down, finished my coffee, and headed to the garage. My bookshelf was almost finished, a project I started when the meeting stopped making sense. I spent an hour sanding and fitting the final panel, the steady work keeping my hands from shaking. The phone buzzed and pinged, but I ignored it, letting the storm gather overhead. 10 o'clock and Brian called. His voice was sharp, panicked. "Rick, what did you do?" I wiped sawdust from my hands. Sent some documentation to legal. Why? There's a FINRA inquiry, emergency review. They've frozen all trading, pending verification of authorized principals. The entire firm's locked down. I tightened a clamp, felt the wood bite. "That's interesting." He sounded desperate. "Nobody can execute trades. The merger's on hold. Partners are freaking out." "What exactly did you send?" "Just the facts, Brian." There was a pause, long enough to hear his breathing change. "Your documentation was clean, immaculate." "Good. It'll need to be. Things are about to get complicated." He hung up without another word. I glued the joints, set the clamps, let the wood dry. The phone rang again. Ron's assistant, voicemail. Then Lisa called. I picked up. Rick, I need you to come in, now. I'm working from home today. Rick, this isn't optional. We have a serious legal situation and I need you here in 30 minutes. What kind of situation? Her voice was tight. The kind where the SEC wants to know why unauthorized principals are signing documents during a merger review. The kind where FINRA wants to know who's been executing trades without proper paperwork. That kind. Sounds serious. She cut me off, her voice now brittle, all pretense stripped away. Rick, yeah? Did you know about this? About what? Ashley signing documents without authority? I knew she'd been signing things. Didn't seem like my place to say anything. I'm just institutional memory, right? Advisory role, pure silence. I could almost hear the gears turning in her head, the realization dawning that this was bigger than a simple compliance slip. Get here now! I didn't rush. I took my time on the drive, watching the city wake up, feeling the air of inevitability settle in. When I finally got to the office just after 11, the executive floor was a disaster zone. Partners barked into phones, assistants dashed through corridors with files, and lawyers, both ours and from the merger firm, marched in and out of conference rooms with grim faces. Ron's office door was slammed shut, shouts leaking through the frosted glass. Drew met me by the elevators, eyes wide. They've been looking for you all morning. Lisa's been in Ron's office with the merger team since 8. The outside lawyers showed up right after. It's a mess. How bad? Kat Barnes pulled her account. So did Howard Lancaster and 2 others. That's more than $1 billion gone overnight. And the merger? They're talking about pulling the plug. They don't want to touch us now. I just nodded, feeling the weight of it, but also the strange lightness that comes from finally telling the truth. Where's Ashley? Nobody's seen her since yesterday afternoon. She's not answering her phone. Lisa's door opened. She spotted me, her expression sharper than I'd ever seen. Rick, in here now. I followed her inside. She closed the door, her usual composure replaced by something raw, almost pleading. For the first time, Lisa Hoffman looked scared. Not angry, not annoyed, just scared. How long have you known? About what exactly? She gave a brittle laugh. Don't do this. Ashley's been signing documents for 4 months without authorization, right in the middle of an SEC review. You had to know. I noticed things. Started documenting them in August. August? You've known since August and said nothing? I shrugged. I'm not in legal. Not in compliance. These days I work in a basement archive. Institutional memory, remember? I figured the people whose job it is to catch this stuff would catch it. Her glare faltered, replaced by exhaustion. The SEC wants a full audit. FINRA's opening an investigation. The merger firm's pulling out. Do you realize what you've done? I met her eyes. I sent the documentation to the right people. That's what you do when you find a compliance issue. Or that's what we used to do, back when the rules mattered. She shook her head, voice trembling. You destroyed this firm. I let out a slow breath. No, Lisa. Ashley destroyed this firm. Ron let her. I just made sure there was a record. She didn't say anything after that. And for the first time since all this started, I realized I wasn't scared. Not anymore. Lisa slumped at her desk, head buried in her hands, shoulders caved inward as if she were trying to fold herself out of existence. She looked utterly finished, her energy spent, her composure shattered. You could see it in the way her breath came shallow and uneven, in the red rims around her eyes. Whatever fight she'd had was gone, hollowed out by exhaustion and fear. Finn's going to ban her, I thought, and probably fine her personally too, just to set an example. And Ron, she glanced up then, catching my eye, her gaze flickering with panic and defeat. Ron's going to have to resign, she whispered, barely audible. The board won't have a choice. They never do. Not when the regulators are circling and the headlines are already being drafted. What about the clients? Lisa's voice was small, almost childlike. That's not a hypothetical, Rick. That's a federal offense. Who's doing it? I dodged the question. I'll keep you posted if it actually becomes a problem. I hung up and started documenting. I created a new file, unauthorized signatures July to October 2024, and began pulling every single document Ashley had signed. I mapped each one to the regulatory requirements: authorized principal designation, Series 24, regulatory approval. She had none of it. 32 documents in 4 months, all invalid. And these weren't trivial forms. They were the backbone of our operations: client asset transfers, portfolio rebalances, vendor contracts, agreements that moved real money. Each signature was a regulatory landmine. I counted more than 50 distinct violations when I cross-referenced everything, enough to trigger an SEC investigation or worse. And all this was happening in the middle of the biggest merger in the firm's history, an $850 million deal that had us under a regulatory magnifying glass. Every document, every signature, every supposed officer had to be beyond reproach. My own name was still on the official record as acting CFO, the only one with legitimate signing authority. Ashley was acting like she ran the place, but on paper she was just another employee with a flair for buzzwords and zero actual power. I backed everything up. 3 places, encrypted, offline copies. I didn't trust the cloud, not for this. I waited knowing that eventually the house always wins. Ashley and Ron were too caught up in their ambitions to remember that you can't fake authority, not when the stakes are this high. The breaking point came late one Wednesday in October. I was in my basement, surrounded by boxes of compliance paperwork, when my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message from Catherine Barnes. Kat's the kind of client you build your career around. Sharp, no nonsense, a survivor. She'd seen every market cycle, every scam, every flavor of the next big thing. In 15 years, she'd never once sounded anything but calm and in control. Her message was blunt. "Rick, call me now." No pleasantries, just urgency. I dialed her number. She skipped the greeting. "What the hell is this?" "What's what, Kat?" "I just got a pitch deck from your new hotshot, Ashley. It's 40 pages of jargon about tokenizing shareholder engagement, blockchain equity, decentralized voting, and God knows what else. There's an authorization to move forward at the end, already signed." My stomach dropped. "Signed by who?" "Ashley Pierce, Chief Innovation Officer. Says she's authorized to execute strategic portfolio modifications." "Rick, is this real?" "If it is, I'm pulling my money today. All of it." "Send me the document," I said, my voice tighter than I wanted. Seconds later, the PDF hit my inbox. I opened it, and it was even worse than I'd feared. Ashley had put together an entire plan to turn Kat's company, equity, into digital tokens, some convoluted scheme to create liquidity events through decentralized ownership frameworks. It was the kind of thing that might impress a VC in Silicon Valley, but to Kat, it was a threat to everything she'd built. And at the bottom, in bold, was Ashley's signature, approving the whole mess as if she owned the place. As I sat there staring at the screen, the reality of the situation became undeniable. Ashley's reckless ambition, her hunger to be seen as a visionary, had finally crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. She'd gone from wasting money on shiny toys to putting the firm, and our clients, at real tangible risk. She'd forgotten that trust isn't built in the metaverse or on blockchain. It's earned across a table, face to face, with real signatures from people who actually have the authority to make decisions. And now she'd left a paper trail that even the best PR spin couldn't erase. The storm was coming. All I had to do was make sure I wasn't the one standing in its path. If Kat's company actually went through with this scheme, she'd be staring down a tidal wave of regulatory risk, potentially catastrophic. The sort of thing that doesn't just end careers but can sink companies. SEC violations weren't just a theoretical possibility. They were practically a guarantee if anyone so much as glanced at the paper trail. The company's stock? Forget a gentle correction. We were talking about a nosedive, the kind of collapse that makes headlines and triggers shareholder lawsuits. Yet there it was, as plain as day at the bottom of the proposal. A neatly scrawled signature from Ashley, sitting on a line that explicitly read, "Authorized for implementation." She'd signed with the confidence of someone who thought she could single-handedly upend a client's entire corporate structure, as if authority was just a matter of willpower and a steady hand. I stared at Ashley's signature, fixated, letting the implications settle in. This wasn't a formality, not a harmless clerical flourish. Ashley had crossed a line. I felt a cold electric clarity. I found Kat's number and dialed, the phone cool and heavy in my hand. "Give me 24 hours, I said, my voice low but unwavering. "Don't take any steps yet." "I need time." Kat didn't challenge me. She sounded exhausted, on edge, trusting me out of desperation or faith, maybe both. "24 hours, Rick, then I'm gone." She hung up, her words final. I sat back in the basement office, a cramped, windowless space cluttered with 20 years' worth of forgotten files and obsolete tech. Fluorescent lights flickered above, buzzing like an angry hive. The air was heavy with the dust of old deals and broken promises. In that moment, something fundamental shifted inside me. For months, I'd been gnawing on petty grievances, my office, my parking spot, the decades of being sidelined by people like Ashley and Ron. But now, those concerns felt irrelevant, even childish. This wasn't about personal slights anymore. This was about the integrity of the firm, about the trust our clients placed in us, a trust Ashley was about to shatter with reckless arrogance. I opened my secure folder, the digital vault where I'd quietly collected every scrap of leverage and evidence over the last 5 months. There it all was. April's board memo formally naming me acting CFO, SEC filings that listed me, and only me, as the primary officer. FINRA documents confirming my status as the sole authorized principal. Then came the damning evidence. Every document Ashley had signed without any legal authority, each one a potential landmine. Unauthorized trades, contracts executed without proper approval, regulatory filings that could be torn apart by any halfway alert examiner. 32 documents in all, each one a violation of both internal policy and federal law, and all of it happening under the shadow of an active SEC merger review. Now, with this latest proposal, Ashley had crossed into truly dangerous territory. Someone with no legal or fiduciary standing, greenlighting actions that could destroy a client's entire company. I needed outside perspective. I called Brian, my oldest friend at the firm, who'd always been straight with me. "I need to know something," I said the moment he answered, urgency tightening my voice. "If someone's been signing unauthorized documents during an SEC merger review, and those documents create liability for clients, what's the fallout?" He sounded tired, resigned. "Rick, we've been over this. It's not just theory now," I pressed. "Ashley's actions, this is criminal territory." Brian paused. "I'm not asking you to do anything reckless," I said quickly, cutting off his protest. "Just be ready." "Ready for what exactly?" "For when I light the flare," I said, my meaning clear. The moment the truth came out, there would be no putting it back in the bottle. I hung up and opened a new document, mind racing but hands steady. I knew that whatever I wrote had to be bulletproof, not just legally but ethically. No emotion, no anger, no accusations that could be dismissed as sour grapes or office politics. Just facts, laid out with the precision of a courtroom brief, evidence lined up like dominoes. Subject, regulatory compliance inquiry. Officer authority documentation. Immediate review required. I addressed the email to Lisa Hoffman, our in-house counsel. She wasn't just competent, she was meticulous, driven by an almost allergic reaction to non-compliance. 15 years of securities law, Harvard pedigree, and a reputation for shutting down even the whiff of regulatory risk. If anyone would grasp the severity of what I was about to show, it was Lisa. The body of the email was concise. 3 paragraphs, each chosen word carrying weight. First, I calmly reiterated the timeline. I was appointed acting CFO in April, and to my knowledge, no one had formally rescinded that appointment. All public filings still listed me as the primary officer. Second, I underscored that in the context of an ongoing merger review, every officer designation and signature had to be airtight. No room for ambiguity, not when federal regulators were scrutinizing every detail. Third, I asked for explicit clarification. Had anyone else assumed officer authority since April? And if so, where was the documentation? I attached everything. The April board memo, the most recent SEC Form ADV naming me, the FINRA registration showing no other authorized principals. Most crucially, I attached every document Ashley had signed, 32 in all, each one time-stamped, each one cross-referenced with the relevant regulatory requirements she'd violated. At the bottom I added a single pointed line. "Please advise on current compliance status regarding unauthorized signatures during active SEC review period." I saved the email as a draft. I didn't send it yet. It was close to midnight. The basement felt colder now, the silence pressing in as I reviewed every attachment, every sentence, making sure there were no loopholes, no room for plausible deniability. First entry, May 2024. Ashley Pierce hired. No securities license, no FINRA registration, no CFO approval. I saved it, then copied it to 3 different drives. There's a certain comfort in redundancy. After all, it's the unglamorous work, the work no one notices, that keeps the place from imploding. Ashley's debut came just 2 weeks after she commandeered my office. She called it an all-hands meeting, mandatory naturally. I grabbed a burnt coffee and sat in the back, watching her set up at the front, full of effortless confidence. Her MacBook was plastered with stickers from fintech conferences and obscure blockchains. She had that magnetic self-possession that fills a room before she says a word, like she's always in on some joke the rest of us have missed. The lights dimmed. Her title flashed on screen: Dynamic Capital Flux Framework, AI-powered risk assessment for the modern era. I nearly choked on my coffee. It was the kind of title that sounded impressive if you didn't know better. She clicked to the first slide, a stock photo of a woman in a blue blazer, gazing at a wall of charts with grave intensity. "Traditional risk models are dead," Ashley declared, striding in front of the room. "We've been stuck in the past, using frameworks that can't keep pace with real-time markets. So I built something new, something revolutionary." She advanced to a slide with a flowchart that looked suspiciously familiar. It was my flowchart, the liquidity crisis protocol I'd engineered in the chaos of 2008. While the world's biggest banks were collapsing and every phone call felt like a 5-alarm fire. The same protocol that had quietly saved our clients millions, though no one had called it revolutionary at the time. She had cherry-picked my 47-page manual, rebranded it with bold colors and buzzwords, predictive analytics, machine learning integration, and condensed it into 6 slides. What had taken me months of overnight work and endless stress, she'd distilled into a glossy presentation. "This framework," she intoned, "uses generational intuition and algorithmic forecasting to predict volatility before it happens." Generational intuition, that was her shiny new label for 20 years of hard-won experience and the kind of pattern recognition that only comes from living through enough market cycles to remember when things really went wrong. George Stead, one of the senior partners, leaned forward, his face lit up by the blue glow of the screen. "This is brilliant. Why didn't we think of this before?" he said, as if he'd never seen the protocol. "We had thought of it. In 2008, I had built it." George had sat in those meetings, but now he nodded along, as if hearing it for the first time. No one pointed out the origin. Ashley's confident delivery and the glossy slides were enough to overwrite the past. Afterwards, I retreated to my corner and made another entry. October 15th, 2024. Ashley Pierce presents proprietary risk model. Actually, RS liquidity protocol from 2008, repackaged with zero attribution or understanding. I attached her slides next to my originals. Saved the file. Backed it up again. It felt futile, but I did it anyway. Sometimes all you can do is keep a record, even if you doubt anyone will ever care. 3 days later, the Wall Street Journal ran a glowing profile. "Rising star in investment management brings fresh thinking to traditional firm." There she was, front and center, described as a disruptor, a visionary. I printed a copy and added it to my growing file, my quiet chronicle of how things were coming apart. That's when the real trouble started. Ashley decided the firm needed to modernize its portfolio strategy. Her big idea: DeFi wealth pools, decentralized finance, cryptocurrencies, blockchain assets, the whole smorgasbord of financial tech trends. She pitched it at a partner meeting I wasn't even invited to, a first in my 20 years here. The next day, Drew Palmer, one of our junior analysts, found me in the basement. He looked shaken, an unusual sight for someone usually so composed. Smart kid, fresh out of Michigan, sharp mind, actually understood the difference between risk and speculation. "Rick, she wants to move client portfolios into crypto. Real money. She's talking about shifting $200 million into DeFi protocols." "Did she clear it with legal?" I asked, though I already suspected the answer. She said, and I quote, "Legal departments are why innovation dies." I closed my laptop, resisting the urge to laugh or yell. "Drew, are you documenting these meetings?" He hesitated. "Should I be?" "Yes, just notes, dates, who said what. Keep them somewhere safe, somewhere off the company's servers if you can." He nodded, worry etched across his face. "What's happening here?" "Ashley's building a house of cards," I said. "And Ron's too busy chasing the next big thing to notice the cracks. Best thing you can do is keep your head down and document everything. Paper trails matter when the dust settles." The DeFi pitch was ultimately shot down, not because of any deep understanding of the risks, but because one partner finally asked how we'd explain crypto volatility to our 68-year-old clients who still preferred paper statements. Ashley replied, "We'll educate them on digital ownership paradigms." The partner laughed, not with her, but at her. Even so, Ron backed her up, determined to project openness to innovation, whatever the cost. That's the irony. The firm is so desperate to look modern, to embrace the next wave, that it's forgotten how we survived the last one. The real work, the work that holds everything together, is invisible until the day it's gone. And when that happens, all the buzzwords and bold ideas in the world won't save you. But that's not the story that gets written up in the journal. That's not what anyone wants to hear. Ashley was always pushing us to dream bigger, to break the mold. She'd breeze into meetings, waving her hands, talking about disruption and the future, how the whole industry was on the verge of some kind of digital revolution. "We need to be ahead of the curve," she'd say, as if quoting from some TED Talk. One day, out of the blue, she unveiled her latest brainwave, a virtual reality conference room. The pitch was all sizzle, charts about engagement trends, videos of people wearing headsets looking like they'd seen the face of God. She managed to convince Ron, our ever-impressionable CEO, that we needed this to future-proof client relationships. $200,000 later, we'd outfitted the entire 15th floor, floor-to-ceiling screens, top-of-the-line VR headsets, motion tracking sensors, even a custom scent diffuser to make the virtual as real as possible. Ashley orchestrated a flashy launch, complete with a LinkedIn video tour that went minorly viral, 50,000 views and 3,000 likes. The comments full of game changer and inspirational leadership. She basked in it. And then, nothing. 3 months went by, and the VR room sat in silence, gathering dust. The only people who set foot inside were IT guys running diagnostics and the cleaning crew. Our clients, who'd spent decades building businesses, surviving recessions, and navigating the real world, wanted no part of it. Most of them didn't even have smartphones, let alone the patience for a headset that made them dizzy. Their idea of a productive meeting was still a handshake across a polished table, a pot of coffee, and the comfort of eye contact. They wanted to trust the person handling their life's work, not play video games about it. All that money and effort, and for what? A footnote on Ashley's LinkedIn profile, and a nice write-off for depreciation. But the money wasn't what kept me up at night. The real trouble started once Ashley settled into her new role as Chief Innovation Officer. The title sounded impressive, but what it actually meant was murkier. What became clear was that Ashley started making decisions, big ones. She began signing documents left and right, contracts with new vendors for untested fintech platforms, authorizations for asset transfers, even trading approvals. At first, I thought maybe I'd missed an email about her being added as an authorized signatory. But when I saw her signature on a client trading authorization form, alarm bells went off. I dug deeper, combing through our compliance logs. There it was again, and again. By the end of August, I'd found at least a dozen documents bearing her signature, all for actions that required a registered principal. That's not just company policy, that's federal law. It got worse. By September, it was as if any paper that landed on her desk was fair game. Asset transfer forms, rebalancing approvals, new vendor contracts. Her signature was everywhere. I opened up one particularly hefty contract and just stared at it. Her name, her title, right above the line for Authorized Officer. Only she wasn't one. Not by FINRA standards, not by SEC registration, not by any regulatory body that would actually care if things went sideways. She hadn't passed the Series 24, hadn't been formally designated, hadn't spent the mandatory 90 days in the role. She was, in the eyes of the law, just another employee, no matter how shiny her business cards looked. I didn't go straight to HR or legal. Instead, I called Brian Kowalski. We'd served together in the Navy, back when our biggest worry was whether the galley would run out of coffee. Now he was in enforcement at the SEC, a guy who knew how to spot trouble from a mile away. "Brian," I started, keeping it casual. "Hypothetical question." He groaned. "Don't start with me. If someone's signing off on trading authorizations and they're not a registered principal, what's the fallout?" He was silent for a moment, which told me everything. "How many authorizations are we talking?" 30 or 40, maybe more over the last few months. He didn't even try to hide the worry in his voice. The moment I realized I was being erased from the company wasn't when they reassigned my parking spot to some hotshot consultant, or when my name quietly disappeared from the internal directory. No, the reality hit me full in the face at 6:15 a.m. on an otherwise unremarkable Tuesday. The same time I'd walked through those glass doors for the last 20 years. Rain or shine, never late once. I strode into what I still thought of as my office, only to find a 27-year-old woman with shiny hair and an even shinier Stanford MBA lounging back in my chair. She was idly flicking through my computer files, her feet up on my desk like she'd been born to run the place. She didn't even flinch when she saw me. Just looked up, chewing her gum with that slow, deliberate snap that makes it clear she's not worried about anything, least of all me. "Oh, hey," she said, not even pausing her scrolling. "Didn't anyone tell you? This is the innovation lab now. We're pivoting the space." She said it like she was offering me a weather update, like it was just the natural course of things and not a direct hit to everything I'd built. Her name was Ashley Pierce, the CEO's niece. She'd been hired a few months back, straight out of Stanford, with a resume longer than her actual work experience and a LinkedIn following that would make a minor celebrity jealous. Disrupting finance was her brand, and she played it to the hilt, posting daily about the future, about change, about leaving the old ways behind. She was the future, and I apparently was the past. My name is Richard Sullivan. Rick, if you've ever had a drink with me after hours or shared a foxhole overseas. I'm 52, Navy veteran, and I've spent 2 full decades at this investment firm. We once managed $4.2 billion in assets, back when clients trusted us because we delivered results. Not because we tweeted about synergy and agile transformation. That was before the bottom fell out. Before the company forgot its roots and tried to reinvent itself as something unrecognizable. "Where's my stuff?" I asked, forcing my voice to stay calm, even as I took in the empty walls, the vanished history. She waved her hand without looking up, dismissing me like background noise. "Facilities moved it. Basement archive room. We needed the executive floor for creative collaboration." I scanned the space. Every trace of my career gone. Framed certifications, the photo of my Bahrain unit, plaques from grateful clients all wiped away. In their place, LED-lit motivational posters screamed disrupt or die in hustle mode in garish colors that seemed to mock me. "Right," I managed. "The basement?" She stopped scrolling long enough to give me a smile so artificial it might as well have been printed on her business cards. "Oh, and Rick?" She tilted her head, voice syrupy with manufactured concern. "Ron wants to see you at 9. Something about roinement." She even made finger quotes around the word, as if the concept of realignment was a running joke. Ron, her uncle, Ronald Pierce, CEO, and in recent months, the living embodiment of a corporate midlife crisis. You could practically smell the desperation to stay relevant coming off him. I didn't argue. The time for arguing was past. I just turned, walked to the elevator, and pressed the button for the basement. One of those moments that felt like the end of something, though I couldn't quite say what. 10 minutes later, I was standing in the archive room. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, the concrete floor cold even through my shoes. My belongings sat in a pair of cardboard boxes, everything jumbled together as if my career were just a pile of junk to be cleared away. Files I'd filed and refilled, carefully labeled for audits. My Navy shadow box with my ribbons, a unit patch, a bronze star, tossed on top of a mountain of pizza boxes and cold coffee cups in the trash outside the door. 20 years reduced to landfill. I picked up the shadow box, brushed off a smear of tomato sauce, and carried it back inside. The anger that had burned through me since I found Ashley in my chair was gone now, replaced by something sharper, colder, precision, focus. The same mental clarity I'd learned to rely on in the service, the one that saw you through when things went sideways, and the only way out was forward. Here's what you need to know about how I wound up in that concrete basement. 7 months earlier, last April, Ron had found himself in a mess of his own making. Some compromising photos popped up from a Miami conference. Nothing illegal, just embarrassing enough to panic the board. Add in a batch of questionable expense reports and suddenly the whole firm was on edge. The board needed someone clean, someone with an impeccable record and the trust of our biggest clients. They tapped me, emergency vote, acting CFO effective immediately. No ceremony, just a new nameplate, and the weight of the company's future dropped in my lap. At the same time, we were finalizing a merger with an overseas asset management firm. A deal that was supposed to take us global and double our assets under management. Instead, it unleashed chaos. Regulators needed hand-holding, clients needed reassurance, and I was the one fielding every call, signing every document, leading every meeting. My title changed, my authority expanded, and for a brief, exhausting stretch, I was the most important man in the building. Temporary, the board insisted. Just until Ron could clean up his mess. Then May arrived, and with it Ashley. Ron brought her in under the pretext of modernizing our digital presence, speaking the language of millennial investors, as he put it in one of his increasingly tone-deaf memos. She was supposed to run marketing and social media. That lasted 2 weeks. By June, she was sitting in on partner meetings, her opinions treated like gospel. By August, She'd invented a title for herself, Chief Innovation Officer, whatever that meant. There was no job description, no reporting structure, just Ashley, innovating her way into every aspect of the firm. By October, she had my office and I was banished to the archives, surrounded by dusty compliance files from the late 90s. They kept my title on paper, never revoked my acting CFO duties, but it was all for show. In reality, I was out of the way, sidelined, my contributions reduced to a footnote. The so-called basement office was a joke. A folding table, a metal chair, and a slice of archive room that smelled of mildew and forgotten dreams. My computer monitor balanced on a cardboard box, no real desk in sight. I set up shop as best I could, sorting through decades of documentation, keeping everything in meticulous order, just as the Navy had taught me. The rituals of organization were something to hold on to, a reminder that some things still made sense. You learn a few things in the service. Chief among them, when someone wants you gone, you don't make a scene. You wait, you observe, you take notes. You watch for the cracks, the mistakes they don't know they're making, because eventually they always slip up, and when they do, you're ready. Ashley, for all her bravado and social media polish, was already making mistakes. At 9, I made my way to Ron's office. His assistant barely acknowledged me, her eyes glued to her phone, fingers dancing across the screen. She waved me through without a word. Ron was at his desk, hunched over a laptop, dressed in a tech bro hoodie that probably cost more than my first year's salary. He'd started dressing like a Silicon Valley founder. Jeans, sneakers, expensive glasses. He said it made him more approachable, but it only made him look like he was trying too hard. "Rick, hey." He gestured to the chair across from him, eyes still fixed on his laptop. "Thanks for being flexible about the office situation." "Flexible?" I echoed, the word catching in my throat. He nodded, never looking up. "Yeah, Ashley needs space for her innovation initiatives. The company's future depends on it. You know how it is. We have to adapt, stay ahead of the curve." There was a new gleam in his voice, the kind that comes from reading too many business books and not spending enough time actually running a business. I sat across from him, hands steady on my knees, and waited. I'd seen this kind of leadership before, officers who talked transformation but couldn't navigate a storm if their lives depended on it. And I knew in that moment that my job wasn't just to survive this. It was to wait for the moment when the whole house of cards would start to wobble, because sooner or later it always does. You understand, don't you? By now I'm less a leader and more the living, breathing index of the office, the guy with all the files in his head, the one people come to for a date or a detail they've forgotten. Consultant, advisor, institutional memory. Those are the labels you slap on someone when you want them to gracefully disappear, but can't quite bring yourself to show them the door. It's a holding pattern, a slow fade, and everyone knows it. I tried to push back, asked Ron about the acting CFO situation. He just brushed me off, eyes already on his phone, half listening. "We'll sort that out after the merger. Right now, we need energy. Ashley brings energy. You bring stability. Different skills, Rick." On paper, the responsibility still sat with me, but in practice, I was already being boxed out. Details. Legal will figure it out. Don't worry about it. But of course I worried. Someone had to. Ron certainly wasn't. I left his glass-walled office and made my way back to my exile in the basement, passing the new open-floor layout and the wall of startup slogans that Ashley had insisted we needed. Down in my corner, the air was cold, heavy with the hum of server fans. I sat at my battered folding table and opened up a new document, timeline and documentation, my quiet insurance policy.